Welcome back to Thoughts in the Woods. Going for another little walk with the Doge. I wanted to talk a little bit about pivotal moments in your life that changed who you wound up being. And I'm not talking super spiritual, super deep thoughts about humankind and mankind and how people become who they become. I mean, like in terms of gaming. I'll simplify it that way. It's interesting to think about gaming and stuff growing up, because in my circle of friends, most of us all had Nintendo consoles. Hey, Dutton, this way. Hey, this way. All of us had Nintendo consoles, and so I was a big Nintendo guy. I loved the NES. I thought it was amazing. When I saw the Super Nintendo for the first time, I was like, holy shit, the Super Nintendo looks amazing. And I could not wait to get one. I saved up money, I sold NES games, I bought a big, I got big into Super Nintendo. And I never followed Sega. I couldn't get into Sega much at all in any way. I didn't even really care for the arcade games until much, much later in my life. So I was never a Sega guy until one fateful day when I had a TurboGrafx. Obviously, my love is Turbo. So I had a Turbo Duo, but I was spending time with my nephew, my best friend, Rob, and he and I were like talking about, whoa, fuck, I almost fell. We were talking about the next game system, the next game generations, and the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation were out. And he was like, you gotta see a PlayStation, you gotta play PlayStation, it's amazing. Like Ridge Racer and Battle Arena Toshinden and Tekken and like all these beautiful games and whatnot. So we were super stoked. We went to the video rental store downtown, and I was like, well, we're gonna rent us a PlayStation and have a really kick-ass weekend on a nice, beautiful summer day. And what better way to spend a summer day than to sit inside and play PlayStation? When we got there, though, they had let us know that all the PlayStation systems were rented out, and most of the games were rented out as well. So we were kind of stuck. And it was like, well, crap, now what do we do? We can't rent our PlayStation, but they had tons of Saturns left. Big shocker there. The Saturn was well in stock, plenty of games to play. And so we were looking around and we're like, went through the game library that they had. They had Virtual Heidelide, which was hilarious that we rented that. But Street Fighter Alpha, Virtua Fighter 2, Daytona USA, some really great games in its own right. So we're like, hey, let's check out this. Let's check out the Saturn. Let's do the Saturn. And so we rented it. We got it back to the house and we started playing and loved it. Like, we weren't like, so Rob was like half and half. He was like, it's not quite as good as the PlayStation, but it's pretty decent. I had never seen this current gen of game systems and fucking loved it. I was like, holy shit, Virtua Fighter 2, seeing that for the first time, like those graphics blew my mind. And I think must have been summer of 95, maybe it was 96, I don't remember exactly when. No, it was 95. It was for sure 95. Because we were talking about, the N64, it was called the Ultra 64 at the time, and Rob's like, man, the Ultra 64 is going to blow both of them away or whatever, so it's not going to matter. But man, what I saw on that Saturn, really fell in love with it. The graphics I thought were amazing, the music was awesome. I couldn't wait to play more. So I think we rented it 2 nights or something like that, played a whole shitload of games, and then they asked us if we wanted to extend our rental, and so we did. So I played Saturn for probably close to a week. Uh-oh, we got a dog. Oh, a couple of deer. So, Dutton, come here. Come here. Come here, sit. Hold on one second. Well, my goofy-ass dog just ran off in the woods. All right, we're back. Look at that bridge. That's freaking cool. This is a whole new area that I have not been to yet, I think. I hope I'm on the right trail. Oh yeah, this is awesome. So anyway, what I was getting at was that I love the Saturn. Rob was half and half on it. He was like, yeah, you should play PlayStation at some point. I really never did. I did play a little bit of my buddy's PlayStation quite a bit, and by my senior year of high school, which started in 96, I saved up some money and I'm like, I'm gonna buy a new system. And I wound up picking the Sega Saturn probably because of that experience having rented it, and fell in love with like the Street Fighter Alphas, Panzer Dragoons, Even Virtua Hydralite I liked. I thought that was really cool, seeing that for the first time, jumping from, the 16-bit to the 32-bit platforms. It was impressive at the time. It looked good. So I wound up jumping into Sega Saturn. I got into the Saturn and I loved it. I never ever really looked back from that. I did envy some of my PlayStation friends who got like really great games, like obviously Final Fantasy VII was pretty hot at the time, Metal Gear Solid, Tomb Raider we got on the Saturn, so I wasn't too upset about that one. But like, what's Castlevania Symphony of the Night was a big one. I was very envious of my friends. But like, a couple games here and there that looked really good on PlayStation wound up becoming like huge on the PlayStation 1 that we missed out on the Saturn. But I was thinking about that. Like and that was my introduction to Sega, was the Saturn, as something that I actually really enjoyed, because I had played Master System. I thought it was okay. I still kind of think Master System's okay. I'm not like the biggest Master System fan by any stretch of the imagination. I do love the Genesis now, but back then I didn't. And I had played Genesis a lot. I think in '92, I had a friend who lived fairly close by that I traded a Super Nintendo to. This is the summer of '92, I think. I traded him a Super Nintendo for his Genesis for like 2 weeks. And he had Mercs, and he had Sonic 2, and he had Sonic 1, and a whole handful of games. And all I had was Mario World and F-Zero. Maybe I had Pilot Wings too. Actually, I don't remember for sure. But I had Super Golden Ghost too, pretty early on. But, I'd played a lot of my Super Nintendo games and didn't have enough money to go and buy any new ones. But trading, for a Genesis and a whole new game library would have easily been something I could do. And so for a couple weeks that summer of '92, I did that. And enjoyed the Genesis just fine, but I really couldn't wait to get my Super Nintendo back, whatever. And by the time I got my Turbo Duo, I had seen the future, the CD-based games and FMV cutscenes and, Red Book audio and all that stuff, and I was like, fuck that. Like, Super Nintendo was just sitting in the dust while I was playing my Turbo, pretty much until I got my Saturn. But thinking about that, like, if, for instance, if that video store had a PlayStation available, and that memory and those, like, that week gaming, if we had wound up getting a PlayStation then, would I have been a Sony guy? Would I have been huge into the PlayStation? Because I never liked the Genesis and never really cared for the Master System. And had I gotten the PlayStation and then just looked at the Saturn library and said, you know what? There's nothing there for me. Like, I'm never going to get into this system. I got a PlayStation. What? Fuck the Saturn. Like, I probably never would have been a big Sega guy in any way. I never would have gotten the Dreamcast. Fuck, I went to launch on September 9th, 1999 to get myself a Dreamcast. I was so excited for the Dreamcast. But had we gotten the PlayStation then, I probably would have been a PlayStation guy. Never would have gone to the Dreamcast launch. Would have been super excited for the PS2. Would have been a PS2 guy. So PS2 is a whole gigantic, ginormous game library that a lot of people consider the best of all time. I've hardly explored that library at all. Like, hardly touched it. So, I was thinking about that kind of stuff, like little pivotal moments in your life where a decision's made that make you who you are, or a decision that makes you experience something one way versus another. And then the infinite level of parallel universes that are out there. There's probably a version of me that did get the PlayStation that day, and Rob and I were playing PlayStation all week, and we just fell in love with it, and we're like, yep, PlayStation forever. I wonder what the experience was for that guy. Lucky son of a bitch, got all the big hot titles, didn't have to import stuff. But, just thought I'd just share my thoughts in the woods with you this week. Yeah. I'm not a PlayStation guy. I'm not a Sony guy by any stretch of the imagination. My favorite Sony system of all time is the PS4. That library really got me hooked, because I thought the Xbox One... Was it Xbox One? Yeah, Xbox One just didn't do it for me. I like a little bit of Xbox One stuff, and the Switch is fine. Wii U is pretty shit, but the Switch is fine. But I think PlayStation 4 definitely has a better game library, since pretty much anything and everything comes out on PlayStation, outside of, obviously, your Nintendo titles. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that? What game systems or allegiances do you have? Let me know in the comments below.
And don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe.
And thank you to everyone that has subscribed so far. Thank you to all the Twitch followers that have jumped over to YouTube to subscribe as well. Appreciate you all. And this has been this week's Thoughts on Our Walk. Peace out, 5000. Love you guys.